All right, let's jump in to the week 15 six-pack. All right. As you mentioned, great week for us. 5-1 on the six-pack. Unfortunately, you hit almost all but one pick, but because I swept, now it's back to a 10-point deficit, 54-44. So see if you can make it up before the season ends. Where are you going first?
If only we should have counted we should have counted money line dogs this year.
I know, yeah. You got about
Um,
8-4 on me or something like that. 8-5.
all right. For my first pick of the week 15 Sunday six pack, I'm going with the New York Football Jets +1 at home against the Detroit Lions at FanDuel. Look, the Lions are playing extremely good football. We've been on them for weeks on this podcast. Weeks. I mean, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I can't even remember the last time we weren't on them.
The way I know we were on them is because I took a rare favorite. I took them as a favorite last week. Like, I don't. Yep. I probably take like 4 or 5 favorites all year on this podcast. So yeah, we've been all over them.
Yeah, money line against the Giants. We had them against the Bills on Thanksgiving.
Jaguars.
Yep. The Packers. Yeah, we've been on them forever. Mm-hmm. But this is what is everyone talking about right now? The roar is restored. The Lions are back. The Lions, no one wants to play them if they get in the playoffs. All might be true, but what are all those signals of? They're probably oversold, and I think that's the case here. Since Mike White, it looks like he is going to give it a go and play. And I mean, look, the Lions almost a month ago yesterday, were +3 at Chicago. +3 at Chicago. Now they are favored or +1 at the Jets. That's crazy, because what you have to remember is this is still Jared Goff outdoors, not been great historically, especially when you can get pressure, which the Jets can do. And this is still a Lions defense, which is improving, but is extremely vulnerable. So I think that the Jets will be able to move the ball. I think Goff will have some struggles outdoors. You got to remember, in that game against the Bears, by the way, which has turned their season around, they were +3 on the road at Chicago, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And they got outgained like 408 to 323. Yards per play were 7 for the Bears, 5.5 for the Lions. Entire game changed on a awful Justin Fields pick 6 late, because the Lions were dead and buried in that game. People forget that game happened, and they've been playing well, and they deserve credit for that. And I bumped them a lot in my power ratings, but they beat a fraudulent Vikings team. They beat the Jags in an awful spot. They beat the Giants, who are just fading into oblivion. And then, they hung with the Bills. That's it. I mean, and a lot of these games were against bad defenses or indoors. This is a different situation. December, Jets playing for their playoff hopes as well at home. Mike White's going to be in there. Offense has been a lot better. And I think this is just the right time to sell the Lions. So give me the Jets here at home. +1 up to -1 is fine. I think that this should be the line if Zach Wilson was playing, but I'm pretty confident that Mike White is going to go, and I think that they'll be able to attack this Lions defense enough to get the victory. So give me the New York Football Jets. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am selling high on the Lions.
Yeah, it's been a good run. Just, be mentally prepared for that moment in the game where Mike White gets laid out and misses like 3 plays. Zach Wilson is going to come in because he's the backup this week and not Flacco. So you might get some Wilson, whether you like it or not. But this Jet team, look, their defense is elite. And, I think it was Ravel was saying like, I can't bet Buffalo unders. And I was talking about the under last week. This Jets defense held Buffalo to pretty much nothing for a quarter and a half, almost the whole entire first half of last week. And that was Buffalo. And Detroit, they're playing really well on offense, but they're still not Buffalo. So yeah, this Jets defense can hang with anybody. They're at home. The Lions, the one thing I wish is we had more of a sample of the Lions outdoors with this full complement of weapons, just to make sure, because they do have Jameson Williams now. They do have Swift is healthier, so they do have a bunch of guys that they really didn't have in a lot of these road games because they have played 3 at home. So their last road game was November 20th. It was before Thanksgiving. It was the last time they played on the road. But either way.
But if you go back to those Rams teams, Goff outdoors,
mm-hmm.
Late in the season, if you look at the difference between, their output indoors in good weather versus outdoors, it's always been a thing. Regardless, like they're going up against an elite defense. It is outdoors. Like, it's going to slow any team down. And so, like, I do think that the Lions will be able to move the ball some. Their offense is playing too well right now. But I also think that the Jets will be able to move the ball some on this Lions defense, which is improving, but it's still not a great defense. And I think that if you look at the difference between, like, I think that the Lions offense and the Jets defense are basically, maybe close to a wash at this point. But then on the up, so I think that the gap between let me say this all this again. So I think that if you look at both sides of the ball, the Jets defense and the Lions offense, really good matchup. But I think the Lions will move the ball some. Jets are going to contain them. Goff will have, I think, some poor throws, but that's a really good matchup. You could say the way the Lions are playing, maybe they're on par, but I think that the Jets offense with Mike White has a bigger advantage over the Lions defense, which is the clear weakest unit in this game. So I think that's ultimately going to be the difference. Jets defense will come up with some stops, particularly in the red zone, and the Jets will be able to sustain a few more drives and get this victory at home, and then end this Lions streak. I think they've covered like 6 in a row. So usually when that happens in the NFL, you're probably near the peak of your market value. And like, everyone is talking about the Lions. I mean, everyone I talk to wants to bet the Lions. So, and it's not like this line is not attracting Lions money. A lot of people are still betting the Lions. So I'm like, all right, I'm not crazy. There's appetite for the Lions still. So yeah, give me the Jets.
Yeah, speaking of top of the market and fading teams, for my first pick and the second overall of the Week 15 6-pack, I am going with the New York Giants plus 4.5 at FanDuel at the Washington Commanders. And listen, the Commanders are obviously much better with Heineke as opposed to Wentz. We know that, but you're talking about 4.5 points in a divisional matchup late in the year in a game where they just played 2 weeks ago and it was a 20-20 tie. The Giants were leading that game by 7 for pretty much the last 20 minutes until Washington gets a big play, a big pass play to tie the game up. And the Giants then miss a game-winning field goal in overtime. So you're telling me that, just coming off the bye is worth, and combined with Washington's home field is worth 4 points here. Not to me. When you look at the Heineke, okay, he's playing well, but that matchup against Daniel Jones only threw 6 incompletions against Washington in that game. He outplayed Heineke, better passer rating, 104-101. He took fewer sacks and sack yardage, 4 sacks for 18. Heineke was sacked 5 times for 29. And Jones added 71 on the ground. Heineke just 6. So, this Heineke love, I think, has gotten a little too far. Washington minus 4.5 represents their largest spread of the season. So, of course, I'm going to fade Washington at their largest spread of the season, when on the other side, you have this Giant team that, I know they didn't come through for you last week, but this is still a team that, with Brian Daboll, they've won more games than they've lost outright as an underdog this season. And then Daniel Jones.
What's he like, 10-0 against the spread on the road as a dog of under like 9?
Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got 11-1, 92% against the spread on the road as an underdog by 7.5 or less. And then overall, 14-5 as a road underdog, 74%, 3-1 this season. So, this is the kind of spot where it's not going to be pretty, but this is not the Eagles. Like, Washington's cool, they're improved, they have a good defense, their offense is a little better with Heineke than it is with Wentz, but this is still a Washington team that's 27th in offensive DVOA. The Giants are 14th. So, there's kind of this. I think this Heineke thing is like getting a little too crazy here. The Giants should be healthier. Saquon Barkley played a season low 20 snaps, got a season low 11 touches last week, so he should be ready to go this week. Leonard Williams, you get him back. He's ranked 8th of 125 interior linemen at PFF. Daniel Bellinger, the tight end, should be back after he was in and out last week. So, I think this Giant team getting healthier, tied this team, should have won a couple of weeks ago, going on the road where they, for some reason, tend to play better. And you look at Heineke in this Washington team, and yeah, he's covered a ton, but 2-point win against Green Bay, 1-point win against Indianapolis, lost to Minnesota. They beat the Texans by 13, and then they got that big win over the Eagles by 11. That was really their only quality win, because they beat Atlanta by 6, but they should have lost that game. Atlanta had like 1st and goal to win the game, and just Marcus Mariota throws a tip ball interception. So, this Washington team really, to me, should not be favored by 4.5, especially against this Giant team that all year has just found a way to keep games close. So give me the G-Men. Oh, and let me also mention that this is a great spot to buy teams. Indianapolis is another one, but these underdogs coming off blowout losses, when you have an underdog coming off a loss of 20 plus points, 106, 69 and 3, 61% against the spread since 2017, 11-4 and 1, 73% this season. So give me the G-Men plus 4.5 at Washington.
Yeah, I would agree here. The one thing that would concern me is just like the Washington played the Giants, then had a bye, and then plays the Giants again. And then the Giants played the Eagles in between. And so I think that's a pretty big advantage. You have like 2 weeks to prepare for the same exact opponent that you just played, while the Giants, were playing the Eagles. But I do show value in this number. The Giants are always feisty in the spot on the road. And like Taylor Heineke, I think he's like the new Jameis Winston. Like he's kind of like a guy that is going to make some risky throws. He's going to hit some. He's going to make some turnovers. And like we always talked about how Winston, we love backing him as a dog, but hate when he's a favorite. And I do think Heineke still has some turnover regression coming. So yeah, I think that this one should be close. These two teams just saw each other. I think it'll be lower scoring. So the 4.5 is really valuable. So don't disagree with you.
All right, where are you going for your second?
All right, for my second pick of the Week 15 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Bucks plus 3.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals. I hate doing this. We're trying to think, have we early in the season? I mean, the Bucks have covered maybe once. You couldn't figure out the Bucks. I can't remember. I bet the Bucks. I've actually had a good handle on the Bucks. I bet them against the Seahawks.
Yep.
And I think it's the only time I've taken them this year on this show. But all right, so let's break this one down. The Bucks have not been good, and it's been ugly. But I think that this is just a perfect buy low, sell high spot. It's also a dog off of a big loss, like you just mentioned. Fits all those trends. They just lost by 28. Now they're catching 3.5 at home. The reason for that is because they just got blown out. Everyone saw it, and Cincinnati has been on a roll. I mean, this is a team that beat, and they've covered like I think 13 of their past 14.
I think it's like 18 of their past 21, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
they've been covering machines. I think this is the top of the market here because, and we're getting, it's right around a key number, and I think that we're getting like a half a point to a point more on the Bucks than we should because of market perception over the past few weeks, and it's right around one of the most important or the most important number in the NFL. So I'll happily take the 3.5 here. And if you look at it, I do think that the Bucks will have a number of defensive backs return. And Antoine Winfield is so important. He said, look, he's going to play today. We'll see if he does. Murphy Bunting practiced today. Both said he's the closest to playing. You could see, I think Dean is going to be out. Vita Vea is going to be out. Tristan Wirfs still on the offensive side. So it's not a full strength team, but the same can be said for the Bengals. The Bengals have been so healthy this year, and who knows if you can trust their injury report anymore, but that's another story.
Yeah,
but it looks like Hayden Hurst is going to be out. Higgins still dealing with a hamstring, which usually lingers. Looks like Boyd is going to miss time. So this is a receiving core, especially once you include the tight end, that's really decimated. And, if you look back at their results over the past few weeks, I mean, they've been winning games and covering, but they've been close. And now they're also going to be missing one of their best pass rushers, it looks like. I assume Hendrickson is going to miss, which is important since Wirfs is out. So this isn't a full-strength Bengals team. Another big game for them, fourth in a row on the road here. I think that they're just oversold in the market, or overbought, I should say, and I'm going to sell them catching 3.5 with the Bucs at home. I think that there's a really high likelihood that this game ends Bengals by 3. So, I mean, if this was 3, I wouldn't take it, but you're going to give me the hook around the 3. Good buy low, sell high spot on Tampa. I'm rolling with the Bucs here.
Yeah, Tampa Bay has been more competitive at home. They go on the road, they get blown out by San Francisco. They lose to Cleveland on the road in the game they were favored. They end up losing by 6 in overtime. But they beat the Rams at home. They only lost to the Ravens by 5 at home. They beat the Falcons at home. Chiefs, they hung in there, lost by 10, and they had that 2-point loss to the Packers. But on the road is where you really see some of their uglier games. That 21-3 loss to Carolina, the loss to Cleveland, and then the loss to the Niners. So they really, they really underperformed. And then the upset to Pittsburgh too. I think they were 9-point favorites in that game. So their last 4 road games have been disastrous. So I do think if you are getting on the Bucs, you want to do it in a spot like this when they are at home. All right, for my second pick and the 4th overall of the week 15 6-pack, I'm gonna go with the Atlanta Falcons plus 4.5 at FanDuel at the New Orleans Saints. And this is just a bet on the uncertainty that comes with starting a rookie quarterback in Desmond Ridder. Marcus Mariota, if you haven't heard, was benched and then just elected to have some season-ending knee surgery. So it's going to be Ridder's squad from here on out. And, this is, we're talking about 4.5 points here. So, we're going through the 3 and through the 4. Obviously, I still like it at more than a field goal, but I mean, I love it at this number because pretty much you have a lot of margin for error with this Falcon team, because remember, this was already an offense that was 12th in DVOA. This is an offense that was 16th in passing DVOA, even with Mariota, and 6th in rushing. So this offense is better than the Saints, even with a quarterback that they didn't really, feel great about, just a bridge quarterback. The Saints are 23rd offense, 21st passing. So the Mariota Falcons are better than the Dalton Saints with a little bit of Winston mixed in. And if Ridder is just a wash, if he's the same as Mariota, we're still talking about I'm getting a team with the better offense plus 4.5. And not only just the better offense, Atlanta, despite their defense, which is, by the metrics, it's been bottom 3. It hasn't been good. But this Atlanta team in overall DVOA is 16th. New Orleans is 22nd. So Atlanta's been the better team, and we're getting them plus 4.5 in a division game. Both teams coming off a bye. So should be I know we're in New Orleans here, but both teams playing indoors, both teams coming off a bye. Shouldn't be a major advantage for the Saints here. So I like getting Atlanta here, and there's a pretty decent chance that Ridder could actually be better than Mariota. There's a chance that he could allow Arthur Smith to do more with the offense, throw the ball more, throw the ball downfield more, a lot of different things that Ridder might unlock. And Ridder still gives you something with his legs as well. So
Yeah, I don't have a really good feel in this game, but and we'll see what we get from Ritter. But I will say this is like the right time to do it. I mean, Mariota surgery, but it's off of a bye, right? Rookie quarterback. You've had 2 weeks to prepare. And we've seen, how many times have we seen these quarterbacks, whether or not they end up becoming good or not, in their first start, have success. The other team doesn't have a book on them. So I think that's, there's an advantage there as well. But overall, I don't have a great feel, but I can certainly see your logic. But what would, do you have some trends here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, remember the Falcons, I think we were on the Falcons week 1 and they ended up covering against this Saints team. And you look at teams that lost the first head-to-head matchup, and they're playing in the rematch, and they're a dog by 3 or more. They are 198, 115, and 11, 63% against the spread since 2003, 4-1 this season. In week 15, when you have an underdog facing a favorite with a sub 500 record, 43, 30-1 against the spread, 59% since 05. And in week 15, when you have a road dog on a losing streak against the spread of anywhere from 1 to 3 games, which the Falcons have lost a couple in a row, failed to cover a couple in a row after that hot start, 45, 28 to 62% against the spread. And of course, you still have, dogs by more than a field goal, the total 47 or less this year, 60, 35, 63% against the spread. So I just think this is too many points, even with the uncertainty for Ritter, because this has been a pretty decent offense. So even if Ritter is worse, I mean, you could, the Falcons are 12th on offense, the Saints are 23rd. You still have a margin of error where the Falcons could still be the better offense in this spot.
Yeah, no strong feel, but you make a good case. I'll be rooting for you, and I hope that I don't have to watch too much of. Actually, no, I want to. I actually
you want to see Ritter.
I want to see Ritter.
Anytime with a new quarterback.
I am just tired of and I'm going to be watching the Bucs because I have money on them. We'll talk about this Steelers-Panthers game. I'm just so tired of watching the NFC South. All right, for my third pick of the Week 15 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars at home plus, let's see, are they still plus 4.5 at FanDuel. I'm going to make a clarification here for the Sunday 6-pack. Doesn't really matter. We give out our first 3 picks, but I actually messed up my timing. I for some reason I just had a brain fart and I skipped over my first and went 2-3. So this is actually my first pick. I was, for what it's worth, this is kind of a sidebar, but I do think that the Jaguars are kind of, after last week, is the team that's, I think, riding a little high. They beat Tennessee. I think the division's going to end up coming down to the finale, where if Jacksonville just is 1 game behind and they win that regular season finale, they'll win the division, which I'm really hoping for too, because I bet them to win the division. I think I forget the odds I got. But anyway, I like them here at this number, plus 4.5. There's just a lot of injury concerns for this Dallas team. You lost Terrence Steele, and you saw what happened to that offense last week against the Texans. They couldn't figure anything out. You're going to get Terrence Smith back, but you're moving right tackles and left tackles around going into this week. By the way, the Cowboys also have the Eagles next week. So this is like you escape Houston. Now you're going to Jacksonville, a little bit of a flat, trappy look ahead spot here with the Eagles on deck. But I just think that in general, Trevor Lawrence, overall, if you look at his trending numbers, we talked about how inconsistent he's been, but since week 8 or 9, he's been really good overall. And the Dallas secondary has issues due to injuries. Lost a couple guys at cornerback, and I was stunned to watch Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll with Chris Moore as their primary target move the ball on this Cowboys defense. And on the other side of the ball, I mentioned shuffling offensive line guys around. The passing game just isn't clicking right now. And we know that the Jacksonville run defense is good. That's the strength of their team. So I'm not sure that with these tackles moving around that Dak's going to be able to drop back and then just pick apart this Jacksonville secondary. I do think that they'll move the ball some, but I think Jacksonville can keep up here. This is a team that if you just flipped all of the one possession results, so all your one possession losses are wins, all your one possession wins are losses, the Jacksonville Jaguars will be the number 1 seed in the AFC. This is a team that plays every game close for the most part, outside of when they face the powerhouse Lions when Lawrence got hurt. But their second biggest loss of the year was by 10 at Kansas City. They've been in so many close games. I think they'll keep this close. I don't think that all of the injuries on both sides of the ball for Dallas are being properly accounted for. I think that Dallas is most dangerous when that run game is going and just grinding and grooving. So I don't think that they can necessarily do that consistently against Jacksonville. So yeah, give me the upswing Jags here at home in just a massive game for them. If they win this game and Tennessee goes down at the Chargers, we'll talk about that in a bit. They're in prime position to win this division. So yeah, give me the Jags here.
Yeah, I make this around 3.5. So I'm with you. I guess the only thing, like you said, to worry about is Lawrence's inconsistency. This is a defense that they should play well against, though, because remember, the defenses that Lawrence has tended to struggle with, and you tend to see the down games, and it's kind of inexplicable, have been these man coverage defenses that blitz a lot. Dallas not really doing that. Dallas is sitting back in a lot of zones. I think they're top 3 in zone coverage rate, and they don't blitz. They blitz like an average rate. They don't need to blitz a ton because they do have that pass rush. But unless they change something up drastically here, this does profile as one of those defenses that Lawrence would play well against. Obviously, they're more talented than most defenses, but as you said, dealing with some injuries in the secondary. So it should be a good spot for the Jaguars. This is an important game for Lawrence just to kind of fully arrive. Like if they could pull this one out against one of the top teams in the league, I think people will feel a lot better about his future.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys also have they're dealing with some nagging injuries up front on their defensive line. And they've lost a couple of corners, and I don't know what they're going to do on the offensive line, but it's going to be a reshuffled unit for 1 week on the road, like for the first week. And, you might have Jason Peters at right tackle, Josh Ball, who's horrendous. He might be in there. I think they were rotating last week. I don't know what they're going to do. I personally might slide Zach Martin over, or maybe you put, Tyler Smith at guard. I'm curious to see what they do. Regardless, it's never ideal when you have a brand new reshuffled offensive line for the first game. There's going to be some issues, and I think it'll show up in the run game. And yeah, I think you saw some of those injuries show last week against the Texans, and I think the Jaguars can take advantage. And again, it's a really bad spot for the Cowboys. Like Eagles on deck here, going on the road to face the Jags, who have been feisty. I think that they're undervalued. So Duval, let's go.
All right, for my third pick and the 6th overall of the Week 15 6-pack, I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts plus 4.5 at the Minnesota Vikings. And this is just kind of a bet on the Colts bouncing back here. We tend to see that, as bad as the team may look the game before, they tend to bounce back. I already mentioned it, but underdogs coming off a loss of 20 or more points are 106, 69, and 3, 61% against the spread since 2017, 11-4-1 this season. I think
also, if you look at teams giving up 50, losing by that much, all those, and then you're off of a bye. And sorry to interrupt you, but if you look at the Colts, who have been just horrific, at times, and I think that weighs on people's minds. Like, you see these games where it's like, oh my God, look how bad they look. But if you go back this year, they lost 24-0 to the Jags in just an embarrassing game. The next week they beat the Chiefs at home. Their other really bad loss was they lost 26-3 to the Patriots in their worst offensive game in 20 years. The next week they won at the Raiders. So in their only two games that they got blown out this year, prior to last week, they actually won outright as an underdog the following week. And now you're coming off of a bye after your third straight upset. And that just speaks to kind of the don't overreact to results. You're never really as bad as you looked the week before, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think the bye week is great for this team in general. A coach like Jeff Saturday, who's just kind of getting his feet wet, to have a bye this late and be able to kind of regroup and assess after 4 games, which is usually it's a good sample size. And so I think you'll see schematically probably their best game plan yet. I think you'll see some adjustments. A running back like Jonathan Taylor bye week is important. He's averaging 22 touches per game this season, and they're going to use him a ton in this one. So, he hasn't been fully healthy this year. This might be the healthiest he is now coming off the bye. And this Minnesota defense, this is a bad defense. I mean, last week they forced 2 punts on 10 Lion drives. Detroit scored in 5 of its last 6 possessions. The only one they didn't score was a missed field goal. So essentially, once Detroit got in a rhythm, they just couldn't stop them. And the week before, we saw something similar against the Jets with Mike White. The Jets scoring 5 straight drives starting in the second quarter and extended to into the second half. And then the 6th one, they could have scored 6. It was a turnover on downs at the 1-yard line. So this Viking defense just goes through these stretches where they just can't stop anyone. They're 26th in DVOA against number 1 receivers, and they're allowing the 4th most schedule adjusted receiving yards per game to number 1. So Michael Pittman this year, he's been a little up and down, but when he gets 50 or more yards, which again, the Vikings are giving up, 87 schedule adjusted. If he gets 50 or more yards, that's happened 9 times this year. The Colts are 4-4-1 straight up in those games. And 2 of those losses were by 1 point. So they would have gone 7-2 against the spread versus a line of 4.5, or really any line above 1, in this spot here. So I think that's important. And you look at this Minnesota team. Yes, they're 10-3. They finally figured out how to pull out some of these close games, but they're being outgained 404 to 342 on average. They're being out
negative point differential, and they're 10-3 too.
Yeah, they're being outgained by 62 yards a game. Now, would you guess the Colts are outgaining their opponents on average by 3 yards a game, 318 to 315? So the Colts are actually outgaining their opponents. Minnesota getting outgained by 62 yards. So what's really going on here? Well, obviously, if you see the Colts, it's that turnover. It's the turnovers, but turnovers tend to revert to the mean. So Indianapolis, they're a -14 in turnover differential. Minnesota's a +6. And that explains a lot of why, in general, Minnesota's been one of the luckiest teams in the league this year. Indianapolis has been one of the unluckiest. We have our Action Network luck rankings. Minnesota, the 2nd luckiest. Indianapolis, 28th. When you have a luck differential of more than 15, which you do here, it's a differential of 26 with the Colts bottom 5 and the Vikings top 5. 28-20, 58% since week 3 when we started tracking it. So these are the kind of spots where you want to kind of, as you mentioned, kind of fade the perception of some of the bad memories of the Colts team. They got rolled by Dallas. It'll happen. Dallas is one of the better teams in the league. I mean, we saw Minnesota get rolled by Dallas as well. So it's really, what are we really talking about here? And in these specific kind of spots, because remember, not only is Indianapolis coming off a bye, which should benefit them in a lot of ways, but Minnesota, because this game is on a Saturday, Minnesota is going to be on short rest. So when you have a small road dog of 2.5 to 7 against a home favorite on short rest, the road dog 47-23 with 4 pushes, 67% against the spread going back to 2005. And just week 15 is one of those weeks where favorites have kind of been doing their thing. Historically, weeks 12 to 14, you see favorites start covering more. The market starts to adjust. Week 15 has historically been a big underdog week. So just week 15 road dogs coming off a loss, 55-32-2, 63% against the spread since 2005. And that's not accounting for how big the loss was, how good or bad the team is, just straight up coming off a loss. They're covering over 60% of the time. And when you have a week 15 road dog on a losing streak of 1 to 3 games, 45-22-2, 67% against the spread since 2005. So the trends line up. I don't think there's as big of a gap between these two teams as the records indicate. And just hoping Matt Ryan does not turn the ball over 5 times in this one. So give me the Indianapolis Colts plus 4.5 at Minnesota on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. We've had, there's some teams that we have like a really good feel on. I mean, and some teams we've had a really bad feel on this whole year. The Colts are one of them that we've had a good feel on. Kind of bought them after the Patriots game a couple weeks, got off them. And the reason we talked about that, why we didn't like them against the Colts or the Cowboys, is both of those teams' ability. And this is why their turnovers aren't all luck. When they play teams that just can generate relentless elite pressure against the statuesque, old Matt Ryan, it's going to lead to bad things. But that's not the case here. You're not facing a defense that generates elite pressure. Their pressure rate, I think, is probably around 20th in the league.
They're actually lower than that. Minnesota, hold on, I got it right. I got it written down. Minnesota is 24th in pressure rate, and they're not going to blitz either. So they're just going to kind of sit back. They don't play much man coverage. They're just going to kind of sit back and let the Colts do what they got to do.
Yeah, Cousins was a mess the last time he saw this Colts defense for what it was worth. But yeah, I think this is time to buy the Colts. Good spot off by, and like that Cowboys game, like I mentioned, they bounced back from the last two blowout upsets perfectly fine with outright wins as road underdogs. Even if the Vikings win this game, they've won 9. Their last 9 wins have all been by one possession. Yeah. So it's a good chance they win this game by a field goal, but they're due to lose one of these close games eventually. And yeah, I think, off of a bye, the Colts-Cowboys game wasn't, it was 54-19 final, but the Cowboys scored 33 points in the fourth quarter. Like, it wasn't as lopsided as it looked, but I think that works in the Colts' favor for their defense playing up here. We gave up 54 points. You have to hear that for 2 weeks, and Vikings on short rest. So yeah, I think it's the right time to buy the Colts.
All right, so that is going to wrap it for the Week 15 six-pack. Let's see, we got some Mike White, Tom Brady, Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones, Desmond Ridder, and Matt Ryan. So yeah, another kind of full spectrum of quarterbacks here, from the young to the old.
A bunch of slow white quarterbacks.
Yes.
Hopefully that works out for us.
And Daniel Jones, what is he? Vanilla Vic? Is that what they call him?
Vanilla Vic.
Vanilla Vic.
Well, yeah. Ridder can move a little bit.
Ridder can move. Ridder can move. And Lawrence can move too.
Yeah. But Brady and Ryan, don't expect many scrambles if you're following us on those games.
Mike White either, really.
Yeah.
After that, we're taking all those hits. Okay, so yeah, to recap, Stuck has the Jags plus 4.5, the Jets plus 1, and the Bucks plus 3.5. And I have the G-Men plus 4.5, the Falcons plus 4.5, and the Colts plus 4.5.